To everyone. Today is Monday, March 17th, 2025. I call to order a meeting of the Brockton Finance Committee. Will everyone please rise and join me in honoring our country by saluting our flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, agenda item number 1, please.
Item 1, we have the acceptance of the minutes of the February 18th, 2025 Finance Committee meeting.
Accepted and placed on file.
We have the acceptance of the minutes of the March 3rd, 2025 Finance Committee meeting.
Accepted and placed on file.
We have the appointment of the following retired officer as Special Police Officer Brian Kirby. Invited, Officer Brian Kirby.
Officer, please step forward into the lectern. If you could please give your name and address to our clerk.
My name is Brian Kirby. I live in 295 Center Ave in Abington. I just retired this year with the Brockton Police Department.
Great. So, Officer Kirby, you're here today regarding a special officer appointment. Is there anything you would like to tell the council regarding that appointment?
I'm still certified up until 2026 with Mass Police. I'd just like to do what I can to help the city out while I'm still capable with my certifications.
Well, we appreciate you, volunteering or stepping forward in your service to our city. Councilors, any questions?
Motion to recommend favorably back to full City Council.
A motion has been made and properly seconded. We'll have a hand vote.
All in favor?
All in favor? Anyone opposed? The appointment is recommended favorably. Thank you, officer.
Thank you.
Good luck out there. Godspeed.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman?
Councilor Razak.
I'd like to move resolves number 7 and 9 out of order and hear them next, just because they're very short resolves. That way, our guests can be on their way this evening.
A motion has been made to take agenda items 7 and 9 out of order and hear them right now. Can we have a hand vote? All in favor? Anyone opposed? The motion passes.
Item 7, resolve. Whereas prostate cancer occurs in approximately 250,000 new cases every year. Whereas, according to the American Cancer Society, approximately 1 in 41 men will die from the effects of prostate cancer. Whereas, prostate cancer disproportionately affects African American men. Whereas African American men are more than twice as likely to die from prostate cancer than others. Be it resolved to have Stephen Bernard of the Brockton area branch of the NAACP appear before a committee of this council to make a presentation on the efforts of the organization to spread awareness of the efforts to educate the public on the need for early diagnosis and treatment options via the Prostate Cancer Awareness Campaign. Invited, Stephen Bernard and Leona Martin.
Mr. Bernard, Ms. Martin, thank you for being in front of us today. Please go ahead on your presentation.
Thank you, members of the Finance Committee of the City Council of Brockton. It's an honor and a pleasure to be before you here today. My name is Steve Bernard. I'm the past president of the Brockton area NAACP and a member of their Health Committee. I'm here today with Leona Martin, who is the past vice president. I'm also a member of the Health Committee. And she'll tell you a little bit more about her credentials when she has an opportunity to speak. Admitech Foundation, who partnered with the NAACP in 2015, is a prostate cancer research and Public Awareness Foundation, Prostate Cancer Research and Public Awareness Foundation, located at 1 Beacon Street in Boston. They partnered with the NAACP in 2015 after meeting with us at a New England area conference meeting, the annual meeting, at which they explained at the time that Brockton and Plymouth County had the highest mortality rate of prostate cancer in the state. The highest mortality rate of cancer deaths in the state. And that alarmed us. We immediately partnered with them to begin spreading awareness and education about prostate cancer in the Brockton community. 1 out of 8 men in America are stricken by prostate cancer. Black men are 2.5 times likely to die from prostate cancer. But we know that early detection saves lives. If you are detected early, the 5-year survival rate is 100%. If you do not detect it early, late detection, only 20%, there's only a 20% survival. Prostate cancer is a leading disparity. It is the leading malignancy for men in the country. And we know that as a result of the work that we've done in Brockton, by spreading awareness and encouraging men that are at high risk to be screened at age 40 as opposed to the standard of care, which is to be screened at age 50 by taking the PSA examination, that they're more likely to catch it before it becomes a tragic situation. What we have done is to approach the black churches or multicultural churches in Brockton, and we've held forums at least twice a year for the last 10 years. And at these forums, we would have presentations by top urologists in the New England area from some of the best hospitals, including MGA's Dana-Farber, Beth Israel, and others. We approached Brockton Hospital and we approached Good Samaritan back in 2015, and many of the doctors that participate in the institutions that we mentioned, that aforementioned, also do work with the Brockton Hospital, so no man is left behind. It is my pleasure and honor to say that because of in part because of the work that we have done over the last 10 years in presenting these forums, that the mortality rate in Brockton and Plymouth County is no longer the highest in the state. That is a result of our persistence in presenting the information. And as I started to say earlier, at our forums, we would hear from top doctors and urologists about screening, diagnosis, and treatment. We would hear from prostate cancer survivors, and we would hear from Dr. Stern, who is the founder and CEO of Admitech, and one of the top researchers in prostate cancer, not only in the country but in the world, giving us updates about the major technologies in non-invasive treatment for prostate cancer. 3 years ago, Admitech, in conjunction with Mass General Brigham's, established a program entitled the Prostate Cancer Equity Program in Massachusetts. And Leona is going to give you a short presentation about Prostate Cancer Equity Program. But before she does, I want to mention a couple of dates that are very important. March 27th of this year is the 16th Annual Prostate Cancer Awareness Day at the State House. Of course, it's not being held at the State House since the COVID. It's held virtually. And at this event, both Leona and I will be making presentations, pre-recorded, of course. And in past years, our esteemed president, Phyllis Ellis of the Brockton area NAACP, has given a presentation, and here's perspective of the program. I too want to give thanks to the chair of our health committee, none other than Janet Trask, who everyone here knows. She's a member of virtually every organization, at least in spirit, of every organization, and she's a wonderful person. We enjoy working with her. I also want to thank each one of you individually for giving us the support over the years. You have spread the word of the importance for men to get screened for prostate cancer. You have talked to your neighbors and friends. You've invited us to your churches, and you've encouraged your family and friends to take care of their prostate health. It's certainly been an honor to work with all of you, friends all, and I look forward to being with you for many more years. Leona, would you like to give a short presentation? Thank you.
Sure. Well, it's not that short, but I'll try to make it brief. So again, I'm Leona Martin, and I'm a member of the Health Committee on the Brockton NAACP. And I am a past president and, as I said, a member of the Health Committee. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Prostate Cancer Equity Program, otherwise known as the PCE program. And just to give you a little bit of history, of background, so this program's mission is to save lives and deliver high-quality care to any Massachusetts man age 40 and over. Our primary focus is on Black, Hispanic, and Latino men who are at greater risk of prostate cancer, delayed diagnosis, and poor quality care, and unfortunately, ultimately death. The founders and collaborators, as you know, is AdmiTech, and we've partnered the Brockton NAACP as well as other NAACP branches across Massachusetts in March of 2022. And we collaborate with Mass General Brigham, UMass Medical School, and other facilities, and the Latino Health Insurance Program and other clinical and community organizations in the state. So the PCE program expedites access to the leading experts who inform men about the most advanced options in preventing, finding, and treating prostate cancer that's available today. Our experts address any questions or concerns regarding prostate health before and after screening, biopsy, and treatment. This makes it possible to develop a plan of care tailored to each man's needs and preferences. And then I'll just kind of go on. I'm going to skip through some of this, but I wanted the main point is to let you know that the men that get referred to this program get VIP-style help and support for patient referral and care. And all men are served in the following manner. An administrative coordinator at AdmiTech Foundation gets basic information and determines if a referral to a patient educator and/or healthcare system is needed. Also, if a man is referred to a healthcare system, a designated patient navigator works with multiple schedulers to expedite medical appointments, in person or virtual, and, if needed, to resolve issues related to health insurance, financial assistance, or transportation needs. And then finally, if the clinical expert recommends further testing or treatment, AdmiTech staff works with the designated healthcare system's patient navigator and men to ensure the appropriate next steps. And we have had men that have gone through the PCE program. And I can tell you personally, on a personal note, I had a family member who actually took advantage of the PCE program, and things have turned out very well for him. And he's very happy that he was able to access this care. And this family member is not someone that's easy to please. So if he's happy, it must be doing something right. But I always like to share that. And then, we have information if anyone is interested in sharing this with anyone that you know. We have a phone number, we have emails, and I believe you all have a copy of the shortened version of the flyer. So we're happy to help in any way that we can. And again, thank you for allowing us to be here to share this information.
I just want to wrap up by saying that Amitech is currently seeking $1.5 million from the state budget. It's had overwhelming support from both the House and the Senate, and we look forward to a positive result. The work, September is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month in the country, and during the month they'll have an international symposium of prostate cancer research that Amitech is the sponsor of. So again, thank you very much for all you've done and all the help, and please continue to share the word that early detection saves lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Azak.
Thank you, Mr. Bernard and Ms. Martin. Thank you so much to the NAACP, and I can't believe it's been 10 years since you started this campaign. So I hear good news. The numbers have come down over the years, and I think your biggest message, and I've heard it throughout the years, is early detection saves lives. So thank you. And if my colleagues don't have any questions, I motion to send this favorably back to the full City Council.
Second.
On the motion?
Councilor Nacastro.
Thank you. Good evening to both of you.
Hi.
You said in 2015 that the highest mortality rate was in Brockton and Plymouth County. Do you attribute that to the lack of early detection? Why do you think that is? Is it toxins in the environment? What is it? Do you know?
Frankly, we contributed to a lack of the disparity in healthcare. And the disparity in healthcare is probably not speaking so much to the obvious feeling that people are being discriminated against. It's more of the medical field, doctors not realizing themselves how important it is for men to be screened early, because prostate cancer is a slow-moving cancer, hard to detect, and unless you take that PSA test, the prostate-specific antigen test, early, you won't know. So we go to our primary care at age 40, and there was no mention at age 40 about, and you need to have your PSA tested. It was not until I was 55 or 60 years old that a doctor mentioned it to me. So the medical field alone is one reason. And then the fact that many men at risk, Black, Latino, Hispanic, the social economic climate, many people didn't have insurance or primary care doctors, so they wouldn't have known to be screened for prostate cancer. So there are numerous reasons. So when we talk about disparity, we're talking about disparity from many angles, and it impacts us, and it impacts us all, and it impacts us, our family members and friends. Is that a good enough answer?
Yes, I'm glad that the rate of detection has improved so greatly, and I'm sure you've played a role in it because you've been beating the drum for a long time. And I'm glad we're doing it here tonight and further spreading the word. Thank you for your work.
You know what, and I'll just add one thing,
Please.
Susan, just as I think about the 10 years that we've been doing this work, I think about how we've had so many forums in the community, and men would show up, and there were several of them that were shocked that they should be checking this, and some of them were even shocked that their doctors hadn't mentioned this to them, that they needed to be checked, and we empowered men to ask questions of their physicians to make sure that they got the appropriate testing. I have to say that probably contributed a lot.
Sure. I have two close friends who have had it. One had his prostate removed, and both of them, it was detected after age 60. So I do understand the importance of it.
Early detection.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor.
I encourage you all, men,
Yes.
have your PSA test. Thank you very much.
Mr. Bernard and Ms. Martin, thank you for coming before us to bring in some attention and awareness. This is an important topic. It hits close to home. My father was recently diagnosed with prostate cancer. He's undergoing radiation treatment now, and it was early detection, which his prognosis is now, he'll be fine after his treatment. So early detection is the key. And so just thank you again for bringing this matter before the council and before the city.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions on?
The question is on adoption by hand vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The resolve is recommended favorably.
Item 9, resolve a resolution welcoming Cape Verdian volunteers and staff from the Cape Verdian Association fight against gender-based violence. Whereas the City of Brockton, hereafter the city, is a municipal corporation duly organized and existing under the laws of the state of Massachusetts. Whereas the City Council is the legislative body of the city. Whereas the city recognizes the increasing number of domestic violence cases in the City of Brockton within the Cape Verdean community. The city desires to welcome each individual and provide learning experiences in the battle to end intimate partner violence, both here and in Cape Verde. Whereas Family and Community Resources, Inc. works collaboratively with the Brockton Police Department to assist child, adolescent, and adult survivors of intimate partner violence and hold offenders accountable. Whereas Family and Community Resources, Inc. will provide supervision, shadowing opportunities, community engagement, and statewide learning experiences relative to local, state, and federal laws relating to intimate partner violence and human trafficking for 3 months. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of Brockton, Massachusetts, that the city extends a warm welcome to Indira Virginia Semedo Mendonca and Izelda Maria de Barros dos Santos from Prias, Santiago, Cape Verde. To assist them in gender-based violence in their country, the city will provide learning opportunities that they may take back to Cape Verde. Invited, Indira Virginia Semedo Mendonca, Izelda Maria de Barros dos Santos, and Pat Kelleher of Brockton Community and Family Resources. And pardon me if I butchered any names.
Yeah, you did, but it's okay.
Just one I'm not sure on.
Ms. Kelleher, welcome.
Thank you. I actually have pamphlets.
Madam Clerk? Oh, okay. Thank you.
So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for this opportunity to bring to you this exciting endeavor that we've gone into with several partnering agencies. It was about a year ago that I had the privilege to be introduced to the president of the association, the Cape Verdean Association Against Gender-Based Violence by the Cape Verdean Women United. We got together and through interpreters talked about the challenges that Cape Verdean women face in their country, on their islands. And as we talked, I began thinking about all the things that we had been through in the city of Brockton, in the state of Massachusetts, in this country, to raise awareness about intimate partner violence, about ways that we combat it, our relationships with police departments, with fire departments, with city leaders and state leaders and national leaders. And as we talked, we tried to think about what we could do that would help their country to teach women and men from their country who may come to the city of Brockton at some point or to this country. We know that Brockton has the highest number of Cape Verdeans, I think probably in the country, residing here. I have many Cape Verdean staff. We have 64 staff. Many of those young women are Cape Verdean. Unfortunately, we're the state provider for this area of offender services for men who are referred through the court system as offenders of intimate partner violence. Many of those men are of Cape Verdean descent. So we decided that the best thing for us to do is to try and bring over a few staff from their country, let them learn about the laws that we have here, the programs that we have here, how we work collaboratively with police and housing, with state partners, with local partners, so that they then can take that information back to their country, try and help. They do have some laws in their country around domestic violence, however, they're not being, the police are not being helpful. So maybe by learning from this country, But they can take that back and teach survivors in their own country what to expect when they come here or what they can expect going further in their own country. They've been here, I think, 4 weeks now. Come on up, ladies. I want you to meet them.
Yes,
They're amazing
please.
women. So this is Isalda, who does speak English.
Good evening.
I'm going to call her Virginia, who I have a lot of difficulty communicating with. She sends me funny things through Google Translate. They've been here for 3 weeks now, and they're going to be visiting with the chief and with Virginia Lopes from the Brockton Police Department. They're going to be visiting with the Brockton Housing Authority. We have an appointment to visit at the Plymouth County Sheriff's Office to meet with their victim advocate, with the District Attorney's Office, and at the State House. We're also going to take a visit to Nantucket, because the domestic violence on Nantucket is also island-based, and they have some very ingenious ways of dealing with survivors on the island of Nantucket. And so I think it's wonderful for the city of Brockton that we're able to do this. It's not costing the city of Brockton any money. It's not costing really anybody. They're not employees. They are shadowing. They're here on visitor visas. I have to thank Councilor Moses Rodriguez for his help in this. We had a little glitch because they only had visitor visas and Councilor Texera, and we were able to work that out. So they'll be here until May 11th. On May 10th is our annual fundraiser, which you all see a copy of in your packet. And then the next day, they'll go back and take all the information they've learned back to Cape Verde.
Great. Well, thank you, ladies, and welcome to Brockton City Hall Council Chambers. Pleasure to have you here. And Dara, would you like to say anything, or?
Well, I will try in English. My English is not so good, but it was a pleasure to be here, me and my colleague Virginia. We are learning a lot of your experience. Madam Pat will be our guidance because we learn a lot of your successful implementation against basic gender violence. So we want to bring your experience to our country and do best as we can. So thank you so much. We are very glad to be here.
Great. Thank you so much for being here. Ms. Kelleher, thank you for bringing attention to this issue and providing that knowledge to these women to bring back to their home country. And if it saves one life, it's well worth it. So thank you, ladies. Thank you for being here. Councilors, any questions? Councilor Razak.
No questions. I'd just like to thank them and just recognize Family and Community Resources, who's very involved in the city and does a lot with domestic violence and is involved with every different, nationality. So it doesn't, domestic violence also doesn't discriminate. So they're very involved. So thank you for all you do, and thank you for being here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With that, if my colleagues don't have any questions, I will make a recommendation to send this back favorably to the full City Council.
Second.
Motion is made, properly seconded for a favorable recommendation. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The resolve is recommended favorably. Again, thank you, ladies. Enjoy your evening.
Item
Mr. Clerk,
4.
Agenda item number 4, please.
Ordered that the following named sum be, and the same is hereby transferred, as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $200,000 from Treasurer Debt Service, $150,000. From Assessor Personal Services Non-Overtime, $50,000. To Assessor Purchase of Services, $200,000. Invited CFO Troy Clarkson or his designee. Chairman of Assessors John O'Donnell.
Mr. Chairman, good evening.
Good evening,
Ms.
Councilors.
Lopes, good evening. Great to see you both. Please.
So this money is needed to begin the fiscal year 2026 5-year certification program, which is required by the Bureau of Local Assessment. We're required to inspect every personal property account and do an interior inspection on those and do a visual inspection on every real property. I can answer any questions you may have.
Councilors, any questions?
Motion to recommend favorably. Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded for favorable recommendation. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The order is recommended favorably.
Thank you, Councilors.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Lopes.
Item 5, order that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $15,000 from the Department of Conservation and Recreation to Parks and Recreation. Invited CFO Troy Clarkson or his designee, Superintendent of Parks Tim Carpenter.
Good evening, Mr. Superintendent.
Good evening, councilors. Thanks for hearing this item this evening. This is $15,000. That was a state earmark garnered by Representative Michelle Dubois, so thank you, Representative Dubois, if you're listening. This $15,000, there's no match. This is going to be utilized at the Gilmore School. Specifically, the target is the fields behind the school. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councilor Castro. Oh, sorry.
Second.
Oh, on the motion.
On the motion. Good evening, Mr. Carpenter. Thank you for being here. $15,000, how are we going to stretch it? What wonderful things are we going to do to improve these fields?
Well, my initial thought was $15,000, I'm going to be honest with you, is terrific. And every cent counts.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to get much. This past Friday was actually the deadline for youth permits to be submitted. We did not receive one from the Brockton Boxers, the team that plays back there, the youth league. I did reach out to them today. Unfortunately, they will not be utilizing that facility this year. So we haven't received another youth permit for those fields back there. It doesn't mean that we won't make some improvements back there. It is in dire need of a bunch of infield work, including mix. The fields could really use to be overseeded, and there's some infrastructure work that needs to be back there, benches, player benches, bleachers, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So that'll be the target at this point.
Great. Did they say they're not going to operate at all?
Unfortunately, I don't believe they will be. I think there was an issue getting members to the board, so I don't think that they're going to have teams, unfortunately, this year.
I didn't hear that, but I will follow up on that tomorrow. Thank you for telling me. So you think you can still make a difference?
Absolutely, 100%.
And there are summer programs that will use the fields as well.
There is, and there's traditionally, or in years past, specifically before there was youth permitted back there, there was an adult softball organization that played back there quite a bit. Mm-hmm. There may be a possibility that if we make these improvements prior to that application, that we might be able to allow them back in there.
And you will still spray for bugs?
Yes.
Good, good. Well, thank you for being here. Make the most of these funds.
Will do.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
We have a motion.
Oh, you have a motion.
A motion is made, properly seconded, to recommend this matter favorably. All in favor? Anyone opposed? This order is recommended favorably.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Superintendent.
Item 6, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $62,461 from the Office of Justice Programs, Bureau of Justice Assistance, to the Brockton Police Department. Invited CFO Troy Clarkson or his designee, Police Chief Brenda Perez or her designee.
Ms. Lopes, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, councilors. So the FY24 Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant is a grant that is applied through the Plymouth County. We are a subrecipient of this grant. So firstly, we'd like to thank the Plymouth County Commissioners, specifically their administrator, Frank Basler, who handles their application, and they have always been a great support of our department. These funds will be utilized for departmental equipment, and there is no match for this grant.
Great. Thank you. Councilors?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
A motion is made and properly seconded to recommend this matter favorably. All in favor? Anyone opposed? This order is recommended favorably. Thank you, Ms. Lopes.
Thank you so much.
Item 8, resolved, be it resolved by the Brockton City Council to invite Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, and Dr. Priya Tahiliani, Superintendent of the Brockton School Department, to appear before the Finance Committee to discuss and provide an update on the current status of the transportation budget and general update for the Transportation Department. Invited CFO Troy Clarkson or his designee, Superintendent of Schools Priya Tahiliani, and/or any staff deemed appropriate.
Good evening, Madam Superintendent. Thank you for coming back to the City Council to present on this important topic. I
believe we have a presentation that I believe Leandro will put up.
BCA, can you put that on our monitors?
Good evening, everyone. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Okay, please.
Everyone at home, we're just having a little technical matters to put the presentation on our monitors for everybody to follow.
There it is. All right,
It looks good.
looks good. Can
All right,
everyone see
please.
it? All
Go
right.
ahead. Yeah.
All right, good evening, Council President Thompson and esteemed city councilors. Thank you so much for inviting me here this evening to provide you with an update on transportation. I want to start off by saying that what you had suspected regarding our transportation system is true. After being here long enough to cast a critical eye on our services, it is clear to me that the integration of transportation into the school department has been both challenging and at times flawed. I am not here to make excuses for a system that has not been well executed up until now. I'm here to tell you about what we have been able to uncover thus far, systems that we have been able to institute that are leading to modest improvements this school year, and then plans we are making for a more efficient and cost-effective transportation department long-term. So first, I want to start by providing you with the scope of the transportation services that we provide. Here you see that we transport a total of 839 students that we are sending to New Heights, Trinity Upper and Lower, Norfolk and Bristol Aggie, and Cardinal Spellman. These numbers have stayed steady since the start of the year, or since I presented to you on November 18th. We have 1,593 students on door-to-door transportation. This is up 332 students since I presented to you in November. 76 students who go out of district, which is up 1 from November, and 430 students who are covered under McKinney-Vento, which is up 11 from November. And finally, the majority of our students ride our general education students ride our big yellow buses. This is a total of 9,177 students, which is up 586 students from when I presented to you in November. So one of the issues that we identified early on in the school year, as you know, it was the lack of valid contracts with rates for our private vendors. So that is something we have been working to rectify by reviewing all of the files, adding routes, rates, and signatures to the agreements, and uploading documents into Munis. So here you see a tracker that we have created to ensure that we are fulfilling all of the necessary requirements. Upon review of our 253 vendor files, we found that only 90 were actively transporting students. For those 90, we have executed letters of agreement that have been signed by myself, the mayor, and then scanned into Munis. We have also collected and updated the certificates of insurance. So you can see on this bar graph where we have completed that process and where we are in that process for all of our active vendors. So we do have certificates of insurance on file for all of them, and there are just a few more, about 10 more, that we are in the process of updating the certificates to also include the city of Brockton as one of the insurers. So all of them have updated certificates of insurance with the Brockton School Department, but they also are required to have a city of Brockton insurance, and so we are in the process of completing that as well. So the total costs incurred for private transportation from July 1 of 2024 to March 10th of 2025 last week, you'll see on this graph broken down by door-to-door, out-of-district, McKinney-Vento for our general education students, McKinney-Vento for our special education students, and our general ed students. And that totals at this time to $4.5 million. Here you can see where we are right now as far as our total expenditures, which are in the gray, as compared to the money we have encumbered, which is in red. Overall, we have spent almost $11 million. So unfortunately, we are in a situation where we have to make a system more efficient when our infrastructure itself is lacking. And what I mean by that is our data systems are imperfect. We have not been appropriately inputting and tracking data over time. So we are trying to build systems at the same time that we are trying to improve systems, which obviously poses challenges. So our consultant, Open Architects, has been supporting us with not only ensuring that we are capturing the data, but also in allowing us to manipulate the data to improve efficiencies. So they just rolled out a dashboard that allows us to track our spending on our expenses that we believe will be helpful as we try to increase efficiencies moving forward. So that 11 million that I showed you in the previous slide is also now captured in this live dashboard, where we are then able to break it down by what money has been encumbered, what has been paid out, and again, by door-to-door, McKinney-Vento, et cetera. We are also trying to leverage the technology that we already have for our buses. So the district had purchased tablets for our buses that we need to better utilize. 135 buses have GPS tablets and combo readers. A recent inspection shows that 124 of the buses are actively reporting data and appear to be fully operational. Tablets are still receiving updates and communicating with the server, and the system is still operational and was able to provide real-time bus locations, which is what you see on the map. But we do have an opportunity to leverage this technology better. These tablets do allow drivers and bus aides to clock in and out via the tablets. Time tracking was originally purchased to integrate with Munis, so bus monitors and drivers could sign in and out and then automatically be integrated into Munis for payroll purposes. The tablets also have the ability to scan students in and out. Student ID verification and the parent app are still actively reporting data. We are just not using the app. It would cost $18 per bus per month for all of the software features, which includes turn-by-turn navigation, time tracking, student scanning, and the parent tracking app. So any buses that are added after the initial 135 will require additional hardware, which does cost $1,000 per bus. However, training is free if we internally provide a train-the-trainer model, and our instructional technology team is able to handle that training internally if needed, allowing us to have an efficient and cost-effective rollout. So our goal is to, again, utilize these systems more efficiently. If we can have a system that feeds right into our Munis for invoicing and for time tracking, that is ideal, but we need to get there. So at this point in time, we really are just exploring every option to try to improve our transportation system, both short-term and long-term. So at a city council meeting, former vice chair of the school committee, Tom Minicello, had brought up the idea of potentially cutting costs by offering reimbursements to parents who may be able and willing to get their child to school on their own. So we felt this idea had merit and wanted to explore it, so we started off by contacting 20 families who were experiencing homelessness to see if this may be of interest. The results were obviously not very promising for these 20, but we still are open to looking further into this. This was a random sampling of 20. And we only did this with students who were covered under McKinney-Vento because we already have this conversation with parents during IEP meetings. When students qualify for transportation as a result of their specific disability, we always do engage families in a discussion about transportation options. But again, right now there are no ideas that we are not willing to explore. So if you look at the 20 on the slide that we reached out to, 10 of them did not have a vehicle, 4 were unable to do so at this time, and then there were 6 that we were unable to get in touch with because they did not respond or were unable to accept calls. Another issue that was brought up by the City Council was bus driver attendance, which has certainly been an issue. However, I do want to be plain that this is partly an issue of, the school department's own making, as bus drivers have been understandably concerned about the ongoing discussions regarding us moving back to outsourcing and have perhaps been more liberal about taking their days. I'm not claiming that it was not an issue before, it certainly was, but I just bring this up because it is an area where we not only maybe have not seen improvements, but probably have seen it get worse this school year. So on the right side of this slide, we tried to demonstrate what a day in the life of the transportation department is so that you can see how some of the issues that we deal with may cost extra money, and also that you can see sort of the average bus driver attendance. So this was taken on a random day, February 27th. We had 15 driver absences and 5 buses that were running late, and 2 that had to deal with unforeseen circumstances, an accident, and 1 broke down. So while we do our best to reroute with our own buses and our spares, this does often result in the need for private buses to cover that obviously were unanticipated costs. So during this particular day, we used 7 private vendors at a total cost of $4,200. And that was to cover not just the driver absences, but the unforeseen circumstances and the buses that were late. So of those, and then we also had 2 internal buses that were used for field trips. So of those 22 instances where we had buses that were, bus drivers that were absent, buses that were late, or bus drivers that were dealing with unforeseen circumstances, we had to use 7. We were able to reroute for most of them, but then it had to use 7 private vendors. So our plan to improve this for next year is using collective bargaining, but we also recognize that this is something that we need to resolve in the short term, as we have seen that this is a worsening issue, and in the case that there are concerns from bus drivers that we may outsource, all bus drivers have 3 personal days, and we don't want to get to a point where in the last 4 months of school, every bus driver is taking 1 to 3 personal days. So our plan right now is that we're in the process of drafting an MOU with the bus drivers that will allow them to roll this year's personal days into sick time, with the hopes that we will save on those absences. Another proposal that has been made is to move our pre-kindergarten students to back to tier 2. So we did look into this option, and we recognize that the most efficient and cost-effective and time-efficient way to do this is to move the Barrett-Russell School to tier 2. The Barrett-Russell School would then move to tier 2 for arrival and dismissal times, and this would be part of a multi-tiered approach to ensure, again, fiscally responsible and safe transport of students in the district, while maintaining and even enhancing collaborative professional learning opportunities among pre-K educators in the district. So the plan would be to, starting September 2025, that they would move to tier 2. The AM and PM sessions would be as follows: 8:15 to 10:45 and 12 to 2:30. So to address the need for all pre-K teachers in the district to engage in collaborative professional development, pre-K classrooms would then not be in session during the 4 early release days, and those would be designated as in-service days. And the reason I'm talking about the professional learning is because the reason that we moved them to tier 3 was so that our pre-K teachers could have collaborative professional learning district-wide. So if we were to move the Barrett-Russell to Tier 2, they would be the only pre-K teachers that are not on the same schedule, so we have to solve for that issue. And that is why we would go from 4 early release days to 4 full in-service days. So during those 4 in-service days, pre-K teachers would be able to participate in the professional learning activities district-wide, and pre-K students would not have school on these 4 days. Professional development for both groups would be planned and facilitated by the early childhood coordinator and the Barrett-Russell principal or others with relevant expertise. And for after-school staff meetings, Barrett-Russell would follow the designations, school plan versus district plan for the middle schools, and all other pre-K teachers would follow the elementary designation. So this would allow the early childhood coordinator to facilitate PD with the Barrett-Russell group on one day, and the pre-K teachers in all of the other elementary schools on another day. So from other stakeholders' perspectives, for our pre-K teachers, they would receive 4 full days of PD instead of 4 half days. For our students and families, this model doesn't change the experience for families in the PM session, as they would not have had school on those early release days anyway. So it would only impact those in the AM session, as those students would not have school on early release days. And then obviously for the early childhood coordinator, they would need to double their efforts and facilitate twice the number of after-school sessions. So while this could be disruptive to families and would certainly need to be communicated well to the Barrett-Russell families, students do generally only attend pre-K for 2 years. So while it would be disruptive, it would be a short amount of time. And plus, for many parents, it may actually work out better, as they can then drop their students off at the Barrett-Russell first and still make it to another school if they have another sibling in an elementary school or a middle school. Moving Barrett-Russell to Tier 2 then frees up 11 Brockton Public Schools small buses to be used in Tier 3, which eliminates the need to hire 11 Tier 3 vans. And you can actually put more students on our Brockton Public Schools small buses than on the private transportation vans. So this would help us to accommodate more students. And then by keeping all of the other pre-K students on Tier 3, we would then be able to utilize those same buses for our other pre-K students. This is a conversation that we are having with the BEA, as it is a conversation that had previously been had and negotiated as far as the professional development. So we are in the process of having that conversation with them for next year. So the transportation audit demonstrated that we do need additional expertise and support in the transportation office, and we have been doing this in a couple of different ways. First, we have central office staff who have been providing additional support with checking invoices, automating systems, supporting our human resources needs, and checking in on the operations. While we did utilize TAS as our consultants for our audit, we also brought in a consultant who began last week, who used to work for First Student and has a tremendous amount of expertise with routing, which is definitely an area of growth for us. We know that the office also needs a restructure, and that is going to be reflected in the budget that we present to the school committee. However, we will also be reorganizing the individuals who work in the office currently, and we do have job descriptions, some that were posted even today. At this point in time, we are looking for someone to oversee the entire office who has prior experience in overseeing a transportation department. And we've also added back the administrative assistant position to special education, as there used to be someone who used to check invoices from all drivers against our attendance, which is a practice that did fall off when we brought transportation in-house, but it is something that we need to continue, even if we were to go with an external bus company, as we need to ensure that the students who are supposed to be transported are in fact riding the bus. Finally, we will continue to leverage the expertise that we do have in the office, even amidst the restructuring. Another concern that the council has raised regarding the security of who is driving our buses. So I can confirm that all of our bus drivers have updated licenses, certifications, and query checks. However, a concern that emerged this year was regarding a private bus that was being driven by someone other than who was on the list to drive. As you know, we separated from that vendor immediately, and now we have instituted random checks that are being done by our Safety and Security Director, Rob Jackson. You'll see on the left the transportation checklist that he is utilizing in order to ensure that when you do a random check at a school, that those who are on the list to drive the buses are private vans are in fact the ones who are driving them. And as I also mentioned in the last slide, we have been automating processes to make them clearer and more efficient. So on the right-hand side of this slide, you will see the new process for bidding on rides that is being done using automated forms right on our website, and then allows us to view all of the bids and choose the one that is the most economical. This is a process that we are doing right now in the middle of the year in order to get cheaper prices for some of our current private vendors. As an internal review of those vendors and the invoices by the district leadership team has demonstrated what many of you all already know, which is that we are overpaying for private services. So to tell you a little bit about the internal review we have been doing at the district leadership team level, one of the first steps we took to implement cost-saving measures was to conduct a comprehensive audit of vendor invoices. We started with one of our highest paid vendors that has earned some of the highest fees so far this school year. We downloaded all invoices and entered the data into a spreadsheet. We then methodically cross-referenced the appropriate school calendar to make sure schools were in session and confirming that the student had attended school each day. Finally, we also reviewed to make sure that the billing or that the math on the invoices added up. Over a 7-month billing period that was reviewed, we found that this particular vendor was paid approximately $276,000 to transport 11 students via 9 routes since the start of the school year. There was also overbilling for 3 students for a total of 13 days who did not attend school, as well as some other miscellaneous issues, such as students' names being misspelled. We are alerting each vendor as we go through this process of any overbilling issues, and we are also considering adding penalties for overbilling for vendors moving forward. Another method that we took to yield cost savings was to take a look at our students who are assigned to the same out-of-district assignment. For example, we were able to discern that there were 7 students, so here you see those 7 students without names, who were attending the same out-of-district placement. However, due to the bidding procedures as they stood before, we were bidding out each route or student one at a time. By doing this, we found that we were paying $1,937.66 per day to transport 7 students who reside in Brockton to the same out-of-district placement that is approximately 20 miles away. We knew we could do better and had to cluster the students to be transported. We did have to put out 2 separate bids. We couldn't put them all together, as there was one student who did require to be transported individually based on their medical needs. However, in doing so, we were able to demonstrate cost savings. So for example, we put out this one bid for a single student that had to travel alone, and then we put out a second bid for the 6 remaining students. It is important to note that we also put out a maximum amount for the bid that was acceptable to us, which we haven't done in the past. And the results were remarkable. So far, the lowest bid for the route with the single student came in at $100, while the lowest bid for the other route with the remaining 6 students came in at $249. So essentially, instead of paying $1,937.66 for all students to be transported per day, we were able to rebid the routes to instead decrease that daily rate to $349 per day. This means that the district would be saving $31,000 per month. Now, as you can see from doing this exercise, it is very time-consuming, and as we are doing it, we are recognizing many different shortcomings in the system, but this is how we get to sort of peel away at the onion and figure out what's going wrong. That being said, we know that $31,000 for one vendor when we're 4 months out of the school year is very modest savings. But again, we think that this is an important exercise for us to go through because those savings are still important, but also for the fact that, again, we need to better understand how the system is currently working if we want to improve it. So as you can see, we have been working to implement a lot of improvements, and some of our immediate next steps have included what I've already mentioned, such as doing the invoice review to ensure billing is accurate, rebidding routes, identifying ways to leverage our internal buses rather than using private vendors, and conducting safety and security checks. We've also even sunsetted some of our transportation altogether. For example, we were providing transportation to our re-engagement center or our New Beginnings program, but that is not transportation that is required to be provided, so we have discontinued that transportation. In the short term, we've also begun to draft a formal bid to go out for transportation next year, and our hope is that instead of having 90 private vendors, we will attract a few vendors that can provide transportation for all of our students who require transportation under their IEP or under McKinney-Vento. We are focused on being intentional when drafting the invitation for formal bid to ensure that the routes and placement and other relevant data are compiled so that potential bidders can make an informed proposal. That way, once bid responses are received, we can accurately forecast the transportation budget, which I know is a priority for all of us. We are also working to negotiate a one-year contract with our bus drivers that is more efficient and that incentivizes good attendance. We have revised our current transportation memo to include terms that are more beneficial to us. And as a way to ensure that we are checking student attendance against invoices and reviewing all invoices to prevent duplicate invoices or payments, we are establishing a process and system and have posted, or we've already posted for an administrative position that will do this specifically. We had interviews last week and we made an offer on that position today. As for longer-term solutions, we are restructuring our transportation office to better meet our operational needs. We are going to set up our parent information center to submit requests that result in automatic bids going out. We will be using our bus tablets more efficiently, which includes using the bus apps for parents. And we will be using the Versatrans software functionality that allows it to align directly to Munis for invoicing. And finally, we are exploring programmatic shifts, such as moving the Barrett Russell to a different tier. So I do want to ground us in data and trends around the state. So while the intention is not to make excuses for any inefficiencies that exist within our own transportation system or cost-saving measures that we should be and are working on implementing, I think it is still important to note that transportation costs have gone up tremendously around the state and that all districts are feeling the impacts. This was actually one of the main topics that was addressed at an MMA conference that the mayor attended, and this is a slide from that that looks at the overall increase in transportation costs annually for cities and districts around Massachusetts. And in this next slide, last week, we had a legislative breakfast that was hosted by the South Shore Superintendent Roundtable of the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents, and one of the main topics was to address advocating for greater reimbursements from the state for special education transportation and for our McKinney-Vento students. So on this graph, you'll see that unreimbursed costs in FY24 totaled only $29.2 million, while unreimbursed costs totaled $29.2 million, which is a lot, and unreimbursed costs over the last 5 years have totaled $121.6 million for the Urban Superintendent Network. So this is something that all school districts are dealing with. And one of the things that we are working with our legislators to do is to advocate for greater reimbursement. Right now, for example, we're at 44% reimbursement for our special education transportation, and we are advocating to bring that up to 75%. And so finally, I just wanted to, remind everyone why we are here in the first place, as I know many have referred to the net school spending carryover as a possible funding source for the transportation shortfall. And I think it's important to note the requirements that we must fulfill as a school system and as a city when it comes to net school spending. So the Commonwealth Schools Finance Statute, Chapter 70 of the General Laws, does establish an annual net school spending requirement for each Massachusetts school district, and failure to comply with this requirement may result in non-approval of a municipality's tax rate, enforcement action by the AG, or loss of state aid, including our Chapter 70 funds. So when we talk about net school spending has many allowable expenses, including tuition payments for children residing in the district who attend a school in another district, charter school tuitions, curriculum, instruction, professional development, employee benefits, and many others that are included on the left side of this slide. However, net school spending cannot include certain types of spending, such as construction, long-term debt service, school meals, adult and community learning programs, and transportation of students to and from their homes. So that is why the school department will always need an additional appropriation above net school spending in order to transport our students. So this year, the appropriation from the City Council for all of our non-net expenditures was $17 million. So the $11 million that it was originally appropriated and the $6 million that was just transferred to our account, which we greatly appreciate. But when I came to you in November, I did mention that the schools were looking at about $20 million in transportation, or $19.5 million in a projected transportation expenses for this year, which left us at a $5 million shortfall. And when I came to you in November, I mentioned that this was what we were thinking about at the time, and since then we have been thinking about how we are going to fill in that gap. So while we cannot use the net school spending carryover, because again, it is it's non-net, the school department has been committed to looking within our own budget in order to make up for this shortfall. And with the school committee's support, our plan is to offset these costs by reclassing special education tuition expenses from circuit breaker back onto the general fund in order to free up funds for transportation. After freeing up circuit breaker money, we will then be able to reclass eligible expenses from special education transportation onto our circuit breaker. I know this is a lot of technical terms, but this is all to say that we do have approximately $3 million in special education transportation costs that can be reclassed. And throughout the rest of the school year, we are committed to looking for more eligible transportation funds to reclass onto our circuit breaker. We believe that we should be able to make up the majority of these costs ourselves so as not to further burden the city. And I do believe that the city and the schools have reached improved levels of collaboration and transparency, and I do hope that this demonstrates our desire to support the city in the same way that the city has supported us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Superintendent. Councilors, Councilor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Madam Superintendent. And it's actually with some relaxing the nerves here to hear that there's a process in place to help us. And I say us because there is no such thing as the school side, the city side. It's the Brockton side. So I just have a couple questions for you. You didn't mention this, but with shifting the tiers that you were talking about, do you know by any chance what the cost savings would be by just shifting the preschoolers from the current tier into the other tier? Did you?
Yes, that is a great question. We were pulling that information today, actually. We know that it would save 11 private vans, but I don't have that at my fingertips, but I can get that for you.
Okay, I appreciate that. Is there like a state law that requires us to transport preschoolers? Because I know K to 12 were required to, but the preschoolers, because that didn't exist at a time when my kids were in preschool. So is there a law that says we must
So
transport?
this is a wonderful question. So we are actually required to provide transportation for K-6 students only.
Okay.
However, we do provide additional transportation. As you know, we provide to our high school, we provide other transportation. For our pre-K students, it tends to be our students who require door-to-door or who have IEP services. So not for all pre-K students, but yes, we do for the pre-K students that we provide it for.
Okay.
Generally, it's for special education.
I know you kind of touched a little bit about it as far as the status of the contract with the drivers. Are you part of those negotiations? Because I know the school committee has a committee that deals with that, but are you part of that?
I will be. We have not started them yet. We've only started the strategy sessions.
Yeah, because I think we got to seriously look at some of those line items like we saw last year, at least for the first time up here. I think it would make sense for us to kind of really dig into that and just be honest with people that we don't have the resources like we used to back in the days, that we have to look at every single dollar and cents because our taxpayers are up to here in terms of, helping us out. And finally, I know you said that the superintendents have been kind of getting together and stuff. Has there been any discussion to seriously lobby the state or to see if the state can actually do something to help us with out of district transportation? Because it seems that we're transporting kids all over the state, and we should, because they're Brockton residents, and we should, but it comes at a great cost to the city in a sense. Has there been any sort of, let's band together and start a bonfire or something like that in terms
Yes. So the conversation is happening kind of on two tracks. So the first is advocating for greater reimbursements back to all of the districts. So that is what we are sending out to our legislators, saying, please, and this is what the breakfast was meant to show. Here's what it's looking like. Here is how many districts are having to cut costs from their general fund in order to make up for these expenses, because we cannot keep up with the way transportation costs have risen so greatly. And I know that here, for example, it was a perfect storm, right? We brought the transportation in-house, and I actually think that was a very smart decision. I think where we may have fallen short was the implementation. But the idea was right because of all of the districts that are dealing with what we would have been dealing with, which if we had been external, which is hikes in our prices. So I think the first is about reimbursements, but the second, to your point, is about some of the practicality of the transportation that we're providing when it comes to out of district. And I did include 2 slides in your appendix about some of the requirements regarding special education transportation and our McKinney-Vento students as well. And there are situations even in our own district where we have students who are crossing state lines, who are, and that is the requirement. We are required to provide that transportation. But I think the other conversation beyond just reimburse us is, does this make the most sense? Should we be advocating for policies that are not only better for districts, but better for students? Because these aren't always playing out in that way. So yeah, I think it's happening on both of those tracks.
Well, I just want to, at least on behalf of myself, I can't speak for my colleagues up here, but I appreciate what you have done with this work so far, and your willingness to dig into the pile and see what you can pull out of the pile. It is notable, and people appreciate it. It's to be honest with you, a breath of fresh air. To speak bluntly, that it has made a big difference. And please keep up going through that maze and see what else you can find to share with the city and the taxpayers of this community. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Lally.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. Thank you for the presentation. I know that, like my colleague, Councilor Rodriguez, said, it's good news. It's a positive update. It's, hey, there's a problem. We're getting a handle on the problem. We're assessing the problem. We're figuring out how to eliminate the problem. I think it's important to note, both for my colleagues, our counterparts on the school committee, and for the folks at home, that there are quite a lot of communities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that are seeing similar problems, deficits even, with their school departments. Brockton just happened to come up on the scene a couple of years before, and I think that's due to structural inefficiencies that, again, are being assessed and addressed now. So I'm encouraged by the hope that you might not be before us for a full $5 million for the transportation. It sounds like it'll be closer to 2. It sounds like you'll still have to come back. But
I don't want to be too optimistic and say that we won't come back, but we do have some options, and it would be wonderful if I would love to not come back, and if I'm being honest.
We appreciate that.
Yes, so we are going to do the very best we can.
Appreciate it. And that is something that I think in the next couple of years will get better. You know, I think the demand on resources will go down as changes are implemented. I was initially taken aback a little with sort of the bus tracking, $18 a month, 135 buses. And we've talked, I don't think that the end result of this transportation is going to demand 135 buses, but I did the math out. It's, you know, not as expensive as I thought compared to what it provides us, the ability to make sure that everyone's where they're supposed to be, and it gives the parents peace of mind as well. They can see where their child is. I like the concept of some sort of overbilling penalty built into any kind of contract, and a maximum amount for bids. I figured I'd ask, and I think this was alluded to somewhat, and I did talk to Attorney Sy about it as well. But the Corey checks, for the external, for the van drivers, they've all been completed.
Correct.
So now there's just sort of random checks to make sure people are in the right van.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because I think the issue that had emerged, I think the day that I came and presented to you all.
It was very bad timing.
Yeah, last time, was that it wasn't that those things, that the drivers and everything wasn't on file. It was that the person who was then driving that was a substitute who wasn't even on the list.
Which
so then
clears that
obviously
up,
we wouldn't have had a Corey for them, right? So these checks really are to make sure not only we have that the right person is in the bus, that there's somebody who's already on the list of approved drivers, that they have their Corey and all the right licenses and certifications.
Yeah. And the dashboard you brought up, who has access to the dashboard? That's internal? Can the auditor see it?
Yes, actually, we are getting, so it is not just for transportation, it's actually for all of our budget. So I showed the transportation dashboard, but we will be able to manipulate it to see all different aspects of our budget by school, by department, and the Open Architects has just rolled it out. So right now, I think it's 4 of us who have access, and I think the mayor, the school committee vice chair, but it is going to be given access to the entire school committee, and they're going to be trained on how to use it so that we wouldn't even need to get those spending reports. You can go right on and check for yourselves. I haven't specifically asked about how many we get, but I don't think it costs anything to get extra, so absolutely we can get it for whoever else would want to see it.
CFO and auditor would be my off the top
They're
of my head.
definitely getting it. I believe the CFO already has access to it because he works with Open Architects very closely.
Makes sense. And I know Councilor Minicello has brought up in the past, talking about, the 3 tiers of busing. He's talked about a 4th tier. Has that been examined? Have the changes that you've implemented negated it?
Yes, we did look into that. We looked into a 4th tier. We looked into moving everybody to all pre-K to tier 3, and then we looked what we ended up landing on was moving Barrett Russell to Tier 3. So that ended up being the most economical and made most sense given the schedules and the quick turnaround time. If you add in another tier, you're just adding turnaround time that's that much tighter. So that's why we landed on moving Barrett Russell to Tier 2.
Perfect. Well, I do appreciate the presentation, the information, the help. There's definitely a stronger sense of being on the same team, and I think the council and the city side people, the CFO, law auditing and all of that, do appreciate the professionalism. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Farwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Superintendent, I am very glad to say that the changes you've made are very well received by your workforce. So apart from pleasing me, it is important to keep the bus drivers happy. And they're very happy with the consultant that you've brought on board.
Right.
I'm also told that someone either is leaving or has left the Transportation Department. That was well received. I do understand you've advertised for a Director of Transportation, and you may have an internal candidate who is very well received, very well respected. It does take time to change behaviors and cultures and business processes, as you found out. Some of us get very frustrated because time is money that perhaps we're wasting when we shouldn't be. So it is very, it's just so beneficial to hear that it seems like we've latched onto this problem and it's still going to take months to get where we want to be. The bigger issue for me is going to be in-house versus going back to a private vendor. And I've had someone who's far more knowledgeable than I am give me all of the pitfalls of going in-house, which kind of prompts one of my very few questions tonight. Other school districts that have approximately our enrollment, are they in-house or are they private vendor? In other words, how many of us are out there where we're running our own transportation system in a large school district?
So Worcester is larger than us, and they've brought it all in-house, and they're doing it very well. So they are a model that we are looking at. Lynn also, which is actually very comparable to our size, and I'm hoping to schedule some time. I've been playing sort of email tag with the transportation director of Lynn because we have some questions out to them. But then also, I think it's notable to mention that a lot of districts are in the process of bringing it in. So Framingham which is a smaller district than us for sure, but they are on the third year of slowly bringing all of their transportation in-house. So what I am seeing and hearing from superintendents who are using external vendors is that the preference really is to stay in-house. And even the audit did say the preference is to be in-house. Now, when we are putting out our bid, we are actually creating a whole menu of options. A vendor to come and do everything, top to bottom, McKinney-Vento, General, all of it, but then also keeping Gen Ed in, doing McKinney-Vento, like having it, maybe we have 4 private vendors and one does all our McKinney-Vento.
Segregated.
Exactly. So we have a menu of options that they're going to be able to choose from to bid on. And I do think that, having 90 private vendors is a lot. And it would be great if we could streamline and it would be easier to make it more cost effective. But I am reluctant to go out completely. I don't know if I'm allowed to say my preference. All of this will come out in the bid, right? It's a process that's bigger than me. But if I'm just speaking from what I have observed, is I do worry about the process of us going back out for what we brought in and then really being at the mercy of external vendors 3 or 4 years from now when they can hike up the prices. Because what I anticipate is that anybody who came in now would undercut all the prices, make it seem great, and then when we have given all our buses or sold all our buses and, all of that, and then 3 years from now, they know we are at their mercy. And so I do want us to be, just to consider all of those possibilities moving forward, and considering there are so many districts that are at least bringing it in because their rationale is, while it is a great deal more work and it's obviously more challenging, they have some control over the costs. Whereas when they go external, you might have control over it in that 3-year contract or 5-year contract, but then after that, you could really, and again, what I've learned is that the transportation vendors, they're kind of regional. So it's not that when you go out to bid, you get 5, 6, 7, you know what I mean, for like these huge vendors that can manage everything. So then you really do become beholden to 1 or 2 vendors. So I think and of course, this will be a decision that is put before the school committee, before this group, but that's one of the things that I'm especially concerned about, because I do think, again, that the rationale of bringing it in was right. I think that made sense. I think it was a perfect storm of the timing with transportation costs, with, our enrollments and out of districts, going up, and special ed tuition going up, like all of these things. I think it was sort of a perfect storm, and then not a great implementation rollout, but I think the idea was right.
Well, I'm caught in a no man's land because I don't want to lose a lot of our drivers. I know them personally. But on the other hand, I worry about the financial implications. I mean, they do qualify for all city benefits and pension if they stay here long enough. And if you look at the cost for health insurance and dental insurance, and you look at other post-employment benefits, if they stay here 10 years and then retire and they qualify for a pension, you really have to take that all in a package and take a look at where are we going. There will be escalating labor costs. There'll be escalating costs depending upon tariffs on different things. And so I think whatever we do, we need to proceed cautiously, but with an abundance of information for the school committee and for us, for the CFO, because it is a huge undertaking to run a transportation system of this size. I had some teachers tell me that they see buses in the morning come in, and there aren't a lot of kids on them. So do we ever do a passenger count? I mean, we've got X number of buses that come in the morning, X number of routes to cover. They respond to the high school. Obviously, the doors open and the students get out. Do we ever do a passenger count to find out, is this bus only transporting 5 or 6 people, or is this bus really loaded and maybe that route needs some relief? Or tell me where we are with that.
Yes, I think that's a great question, because one of the things that we spoke about at the school committee meeting recently was about the student scan-in option. And I know committee member Asak had brought up the point of, because we want to make sure that our students, that students who aren't supposed to be riding aren't just getting on, right? Like, whereas my concern was actually the exact opposite, is, are we paying for these buses thinking that these 10 students are riding, and then they're not getting on? They're walking to school, they're getting a ride with a friend, they're, all of these different scenarios, because the story that I feel like I hear, or the anecdote that I hear more, is the buses look half empty. Now, that being said, when you look at the number of 9,177 students riding these buses, that's up about, 580 students from even when I was here last time. It's hard to imagine any buses being half empty. So I think I don't have the answer to your question about how many are on each bus, but I do think that that's something that we are looking into, as far as how many have been assigned to each bus, how many. I think the principals are the ones who, at least at the elementary and middle level, have a good sense of how many kids are getting on and off those buses. But as for like a check on our big yellow buses, how many kids are on it each day, that's a great question. How many should be on it, and how many are actually on it?
Well, and honestly, for the benefit of the public, the 9,000 is spread over elementary, middle school,
Absolutely.
high school. So you may not have, 3,000 kids going to the high school by bus. It's not as cool to ride the bus today as it was back in my day. In my day, we'd get on, we'd all have a great time and, plan our after-school activities, and now probably it's a little geeky to ride a big yellow bus to school, and I get it. I do. Listen, I thank you for the work that you're doing. I wish that you didn't have to invest so much time into it, because superintendents tend to focus on curriculum and student achievement, staff development, and budgets and everything else, but you kind of inherited this, and hopefully we'll get through it. It won't happen overnight, and if your staff is or your school bus staff is starting to be happy, I'm happy. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
Counselor Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Superintendent. Again, I just want to thank you very much for the presentation. It was really nice to see somebody who has command of the subject. And again, you didn't create this situation. You came here to rectify it. And what I've heard tonight, and what I've seen so far, in some of our conversations we had, you were definitely the right person to be bringing this forward. I just got a couple of questions. This transportation director you're looking for, that's going to take some of the burden off of you, so you're looking for someone who can actually run this thing A to Z.
Yes, and it's not just me. I do want to thank the entire district leadership team, many of whom are here tonight, because it really has been a group effort. I think none of us are, transportation experts. So what we're really doing is just kind of, diving into the data and seeing what we come out with. And so it really has been a team effort. But yes, to answer your question, it would be wonderful to have somebody with that expertise who can really lead us through this exploration, because right now it's us, just exploring.
Gotcha. One other question was GPS. GPS, is that on all the privately run vans?
So no, that is on our buses.
Just
Those are the 135 buses that we have. Yeah, there are different, the private buses have different systems and capabilities, and that is something we've been talking about when we go out to bid of what should be the minimum standard. So for our own buses, for example, we have cameras all over them. We can see what's happening inside, outside the buses, which is very beneficial. Obviously, we don't have those on all of our private buses. So one of the things we're mentioning in the bid is what some of the requirements need to be so that we have the same services. Because right now with 90, some have different capabilities and some don't. So how do we make that more consistent?
Right. I think that would be helpful to give you more control over what they are doing, or maybe they're not doing also. Right. Again, I just want to close by thanking you again. I also want to thank the school committee, your command staff, because the ship has definitely turned in the right direction now. I think we have the right captain running it, and I wish you continued success. Anything I can do or this body can help you with, feel free to call upon us. And thank you again for all your efforts, Superintendent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Razak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Superintendent, for the presentation. It was very informative, and I appreciate your hard work as well as your team. So I know we have some school committee members as well as school department employees here this evening, so in the gallery, so welcome, and thank you for being here tonight. I just have a couple of comments. One of them is I was a big advocate for having our own buses, and I hope we can keep them. I would like to see that, because there's also pride in seeing the city of Brockton on the side of those buses. So if there's a way and we can make it work, I'd like to see that we, because when the idea was first presented to us, it was supposed to work. It was supposed to save us money. So hopefully we can find that. I just want to thank you, and once again, as my colleague mentioned, if there's anything we can do on this side, just we're here for you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Nicastro.
Thank you. Good evening. It's good to see you and your backup. I very much appreciate this transportation update that you provided to us. As you and I spoke before the meeting, we got it very late in the day, and I'm appreciative that you've agreed to come back, probably the second FinCom meeting of April, to give us time to digest all this information, because there's tons of it in here, and perhaps ask more relevant questions. And also, you'll probably have some information for updating it as well, and we can add that to the mix. I think it's important that we digest it and speak about it, certainly well ahead of the budget hearings. And, as we discussed this evening, the transportation for the schools is running a deficit. Of course, we're hopeful that it can be covered within your department budget, but we'll need to know if that's not the case. And so with that in mind, unless someone else wants to make comments, I'd like to make a motion to postpone this matter till probably our second FinCom meeting of April.
We got a second?
Second?
We have a motion made and properly seconded to postpone this matter. Prior to that, we need one more
Yeah,
counselor.
we don't have a quorum.
Come to the table.
He's okay now.
Yeah, okay. And then just on that motion, and thank you for that, I just want to thank you, Madam Superintendent, for coming before us to update us on the Transportation Department. Your presentations are always very informative, and as been stated here, I believe we're heading in the right direction, and we have tremendously capable leadership at the school department to usher us in to a more cost-effective transportation department. So thank you for all your efforts. On that, I also want to, as previously stated, I want to thank some of our school committee members for joining us this evening. Vice Chair Tony Rodriguez, school committee member Anna Oliveira, school committee member Jorge Vega. Thank you for joining us this evening. Motion has been made and properly seconded to postpone this matter to the second FinCom meeting in April. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The matter is postponed.
Thank you very
Again,
much.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Councilors, that's the end of our agenda. We'll move to councilor recognition. Any councilors like have anything to say? Seeing none.
Happy St. Patrick's
Oh,
Day.
yes, of course, as I said at the beginning of this meeting, I'll say it again at the end. Happy St. Patty's Day, everyone. Glad to see everybody wearing green. The ceiling green shirt-ish I own, so except you're getting pinched later, Counselor.
I had green on last Thursday, so
Okay.
I'm all set.
So we're still going to pinch you. Okay, with no further city business before this committee, I declare this meeting adjourned.